It's a complex thing because as you walk in the door, you're smelling. You often smell the fresh paint because if you're going to a prison, you've usually said that you're coming beforehand and then they paint the place, which is fine because at least the prison gets painted, right? You're listening. Is it too quiet? Not a good sign, ever. Is it really, really very noisy? Is there a mass fight going on somewhere? So how do the people relate to each other? Are they moving around and they seem, when they encounter each other, staff, prisoners, 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 do they seem as though they're afraid? Do they look as though they're relaxed? Are they comfortable? Is there a respectful behaviour going on? And those are things you don't have to talk to anybody about. You can get a feel for it. Of course, you've already come armed with a lot of information, but gathering information from the people who are working there will give you a sense of what they think the place is like, and also you establish a rapport, because if you're going to have a constructive dialogue with them about ways of improving, they've got to see that you actually do understand a bit where they're coming from. And so there's a bit of manoeuvring, a lot of listening, and on a visit, for example, to a prison, one would probably be taken by the manager around certain places. But what you need to do is assemble the official documentation and then also decide and impart to the people the fact that you're going where you want to go. And you have to take control of the visit. And that's a delicate thing to do because prison managers are used to controlling their institutions, and indeed they're trained professionally to keep control all the time. But you have to take over control of the visit, and so that has to be done by a mixture of diplomacy and firmness. So you have to smile, but be absolutely adamant that you're playing by your rules. And there aren't difficult rules for everybody to understand, but they are non-negotiable. And then you look and you, within the team, have pre-assigned roles that you play. I usually, as the head of a delegation, would spend a lot of time talking with the manager. But while that's going on, the rest of my team will, if they're with me, be looking around and spotting the things that need to be followed up on later, looking at where the manager is taking us and conversely where he's not taking us, and then planning out where we go from there and how the work will be done. And a lot of it is about talking with people one-to-one so that you really find out what's going on from their perspective and from the perspective of people who are deprived of liberty. And we have to be completely clear with staff that we talk with prisoners alone and there are no witnesses, and that's something which they must accept, and which also they must not afterwards try to unpack for themselves. They can't go to the prisoner afterwards and say, what did you say to them? And sometimes, unfortunately, when we come, it's pretty clear that people have been talked to beforehand and told what they must and must not say. And then you might have to do several visits to that place before you overcome the barriers that have been set up by staff. And I'm talking about a poor institution. It doesn't always happen that way. Some institutions are quite open, and you can look at all of the facets of the institution, including the most difficult things. Who are the people who are the troublemakers in the institution for the management? Where are they? If they are in segregation, if they're in solitary confinement, what's happening to them? How are they being treated? Are there people who are under restraint, including manual restraint or chemical restraint? Sometimes the visit will uncover really grim things, grim from the point of view of the person who's been the victim of ill treatment. And we always go with doctors who are able to examine persons and document injuries. We don't obviously treat people, but we do have a duty not to harm people more than they've already been harmed. So there is quite a lot of time that needs to be spent with people who have suffered injury to make them understand that although we cannot help them, they can help us to stop this happening to somebody else. And I think one of the really encouraging things is how many people will very selflessly put themselves at a degree of risk in terms of going over things which are very painful to talk about because they really want it to be better for somebody else. And that's all part of the visit, really. And at the end of the visit, then we will, leaving information for prisoners so that they know where to contact us in confidence, we will also then talk with management and go over the things that have been difficult, but in such a way that it's not possible to identify which prisoner has said what to us.